Thank you. Take a moment for me and think about your social networks. Okay, stop. How many of your minds went straight here? Yeah? Okay. This is what I figured. But when I think about social networks, I'm actually not thinking about these. I'm thinking about these. But I'm going to back up for a second and explain to you where this very beautiful spider web comes from. Social network analysts have actually been analyzing, statistically, our social network connections with one another since the 1930s. And what they do is they ask people questions about their social connections and the people that they have particular types of relationships with. They ask questions like, who are your friends? Who do you go to for advice? Who do you like? Who do you dislike? Who do you trust? Who do you not trust? And they ask people these questions in order to map their networks and create network graphs like this one. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of social network analysis, and in about a minute, you guys are going to be experts. Are you ready for this? Okay, so all of these dots on this social network graph are called nodes. These nodes represent teachers. All of the lines in between the nodes represent different types of connections that those teachers might have. Okay, are you good? We got it? Fantastic. So what I did was, as I was working on my doctoral work, I looked at the work of social network analysts in education. And what social network analysts in education have done is they've said, how do teachers' social connections, how do the connections they build with one another impact their practice? In particular, their practice around innovative techniques in the classroom, what they believe about education, what they think is important in education. How are these things shaped by the connections that teachers make? I took this one step further and asked, how do teacher networks impact teacher technology integration, or do they at all? What impact do the people that you talk to on a daily basis across the hall, next door, what impact does that have on whether or not you're willing to integrate technology into your practice, what kinds of technology you'll integrate into your practice, whether or not you think it's a good idea to integrate technology into your practice? These are the questions I was interested in. So I worked with teachers at a random American high school that shall remain nameless, and I did a number of observations of them in their professional development sessions, in their classrooms. I did a lot of interviews with them, and I surveyed them. And I asked them a lot of questions about their networks. I asked them who they thought their friends were in the school. I asked them who they went to for curricular advice. And I asked them who they consulted about technology. This is the technology network, and this network shows people's technology consultations. I asked them, who do you go to? Who do you go to for advice about technology? And they told me. And what I was able to do when I look at these networks is say, okay, the people who have bigger nodes are the ones that people nominated more often. People are closer together if they're forming a tight network. There are lots of connections in between people who are closer together. People are splashed farther apart if they don't have close connections with individuals who are further away in the network. So I'm going to tell you a story about a small group who was part of this technology network in the school. This is the English department. And in the English department, there was a small core group that was particularly dedicated to thinking about technology in their practice. This core group, if you walked into their classrooms on any given day, you would probably see the students working on the laptops that were on carts. They lovingly called these laptop carts cows, computers on wheels, which I thought was hilarious. And they would maybe be using Google Drive. The students would be collaborating on a project. They would be sharing ideas back and forth. The teachers might be having them submit things in Google Drive. Google Drive was pretty new at this point, so that was very innovative. You might see other teachers stopping in to ask them questions about a tool that they could use in their classroom. This core group had a PLC, a professional learning community, around technology integration. They specifically studied this all year. It was part of their goals. And it was excellent. This group was one of the many hubs of technology knowledge in the school. You can see other hubs here. There was another hub in the special education department, another small hub in the science department. And it was great because they had a core of knowledge that enabled them to share what they knew about using technology in the classroom with people across their school. You can sort of see that a lot of the knowledge about technology that goes out to the rest of the school lives within that little hub. But what ended up happening was that some of those teachers who were pushed out to the outskirts felt a little bit like they couldn't access that knowledge. So technology networks are great. It's good to be connected, right? But sometimes those connections can lead people to feel a little bit isolated, or as though they're not quite sure how to tap into the hub. Some teachers expressed this in interviews. One teacher said it made her feel kind of inadequate to look at them and look at their practice, and she wasn't quite sure how to tap in because she felt a little bit intimidated by the technology. She didn't really quite feel like she had the social capital to gain access to the hubs of knowledge in her community. And I find that teachers in my work often feel this way. This isn't actually that strange of a phenomenon. Research has told us that when teachers form professional learning communities and shared practice, that shared practice can lead to fewer unchecked assumptions. It's really easy when you work in a tight group of people and you develop a lot of great ideas about how to do things well and in innovative ways to stop interrogating whether or not what you're doing is really innovative or the best way. It's easy for assumptions to be left unchallenged. So as I've worked with teachers, and these teachers and other teachers, so this is a Facebook network of another teacher who wasn't part of this project, one of the things that I've found is that those teachers who are most likely to continue over time engaging in innovative practices are the ones who have networks that span spaces, span media, span digital and face-to-face arenas. So this is a teacher's Facebook network, but what you can see in this Facebook network is how, though it's a digital online space, doesn't represent necessarily digital online relationships. You can see her bringing together networks from across the country, from across learning communities like conferences, schools that she's worked at, and even across age levels. She has groups that are students, groups that are teachers, groups that are former colleagues, current colleagues. So time and space end up getting collapsed in a single digital network. And if you think about this teacher, you can imagine that she has networks like this in Facebook, in Twitter, at her school, at many other schools across the country. So I had to think about, as I transitioned from sitting in sweats and writing a really long book that nobody is ever going to read, to my current job in K-12 education, what on earth had I learned about networks that I was actually going to be able to use in my work? I knew that networks could either constrain or enable innovative practice, that being connected is a good thing, but it can also lead people to feel isolated. I knew that the most innovative networks were the ones that inspired people to challenge, question, and create excellent research questions so that teachers could do research in their classrooms and ask things that made other people wonder what they found. I knew that the best networks were the ones that had leadership, mentorship, and time and space to grow and flourish. They don't happen overnight. And the most innovative ones, the ones that really got teachers thinking about things, were the ones that inspired other people to join and continued to grow. So with these things in mind, I applied for and received a grant from the McCarthy-Dressman Foundation to form the Waltham Integration Network. Right now, we are 23 teachers that span 7 schools and 13 grade levels. And what we do is we ask questions about the role of technology in our classrooms. We try new things, and we record those new things in a public space, and we make our practice as public as we can. We take pictures of what we're doing in our classrooms, we videotape what's happening in our classrooms, and most importantly, we blog about what's happening in classrooms. And we hope that other teachers will come to that space, read our blog, interact with us, and that more teachers will join the project as it moves forward. We started out as just 11 teachers last year. Now we are 23 teachers, 2 research assistants, and me, across 7 schools, and we have really built a lot of excellent relationships in our schools. But what we're hoping to do with this project is build relationships that span our schools and enable teachers to reach across disciplinary areas, across grade levels, to find new ideas and ways that those ideas align so that we can challenge our assumptions and build new ways of doing what we do every day in our classrooms. It's my hope that eventually this will expand and reach across the state of Massachusetts, and while I'm dreaming, across the country. But for now, I invite you to challenge yourself, to think about your networks and the ways in which those networks invite other people in or potentially build walls that shut other people out. I invite you to reach beyond the span of your department, the person who works across the hall from you, across your buildings, across your districts, to conferences like this, which is what you're already doing, to build your networks and to think about how those networks shape and impact your practice. I invite you to reflect on the ways in which people who you've built connections with have changed the way you think about education. And I hope you will maybe even draw a picture and make visible those invisible networks that really shape our lives, because maybe by making our invisible networks visible, we can change education for the better. Thank you.